I am not somebody who hunts. I feel like in our culture today, James, there are some people who hunt with the bow as like an ego thing or an identity thing. I hunt with the bow a lot, but it's not a part of my identity. I do it because I really enjoy it, not because I want other people to view me in a certain way. If that makes sense. But I do
It,
think there is something about this arrow concept that is very
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. I hear a lot of people say stuff like, well, I just love elk, or I love mule deer, whatever it is, whatever your species is.
Mhm.
I think that if I try to be a little bit more honest with myself, and the same could apply for archery, it's not that I love elk, it's that I love the way elk make me feel when I'm close to them. These are stories of outdoor adventure and expert advice from folks with calloused hands. I'm James Nash, and this is the Six Ranch Podcast. The Six Ranch Podcast is brought to you by Sig Sauer. Sig is a leading provider and manufacturer of firearms, electro-optics, ammunition, air guns, and suppressors. For over 250 years, Sig Sauer Inc. has evolved and thrived by blending American ingenuity, German engineering, and Swiss precision. Today, Sig Sauer is synonymous with industry-leading quality and innovation, which has made it the brand of choice amongst the U.S. military, the global defense community, law enforcement, competitive shooters, hunters, and responsible citizens. Sig Sauer is also a premier provider of elite firearms instruction and tactical training at the Sig Sauer Academy located in New Hampshire. For more information about Sig Sauer and its complete line of products, visit sigsauer.com. So we're talking about chucker hunting, right? And you're looking at getting a new dog, and you're out hunting with a buddy, and you've got a Garmin watch, and he's got a Garmin collars on his dog. And it is an amazing thing that we're living in a time where when you're hunting a bird, that you are communicating with your dog through satellites in outer space.
Yeah,
That's really interesting.
that is interesting. And your satellites are then connecting with your phone. And your dog has no idea, by the way. He's just out there trying to like,
Just
all
trying
he
really,
wants.
really hard not to get zapped.
They haven't changed. Dogs haven't changed at all, right? Like there's one thing they want to do, which is like find bird, and if you're shooting over a point bird, and then either watch you miss or watch you shoot. And yet, yeah, the last like 15 years, bird hunting has become this like thing that nobody really does anymore without satellite communication, including myself, which is very interesting.
And it's like a remote controlled dog in some ways. And in a lot of the ways that people train dogs, and what's considered to be the pinnacle of training is a dog that's under absolute control and is just doing exactly what the dog handler is telling it to do. My tact with my labs has been so chaotic compared to that. Like I want them hunting on their own. I don't want to be dealing with the dog and like telling them where to go and when to pick something up. I'll help them if I have to, but I also don't want to retrieve to hand. Like when you bring that duck back, just drop it and get ready. I don't want to stop what I'm doing so I can take a duck out of your mouth. Like you can drop that duck on your own.
Oh yeah, no, the whole like I love hunting over dogs. Love it. I love upland hunting. But I'm not, and I've hunted with some guys who are just like, it's the thing that they're into is like, I'm into Brittany's. I only hunt Brittany's. And then other guys are like, I only hunt short hairs, and life is all about me hunting with short hairs. That's not really what gets me going, but those folks are like, they're cut from different cloth when it comes to like control and over their dog. And like what they care about as much as shooting birds is like, how did the dog perform to meet my expectations of what it should do today? Yeah. It's like, yeah, we shot a limit, but there was that one time where I watched, little Harry drop a bird before it got to me. And like, I'm upset about that. And I'm going to work on him to make sure next time we go out, it's like, that's a thing that I've observed bird dog guys do. And it's just interesting.
Yeah. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It just doesn't
No.
suit the way that I want to go hunt. My dog she's had ear infections her whole life, and her hearing is basically shot at this point. So I'm in this interesting predicament of hunting with a dog that is effectively deaf. So she has to really do everything on her own, because I can't even call to her and tell her what's going on. I can kind of give her some really ridiculous hand signals that, she might understand kind of, but she's hunting as much as I am hunting based on her experience and her knowledge. And I've treated it like we have a hunting business together and that I own 51% of it. Like I expect a lot of initiative out of that dog. I have veto authority, but she's invested.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. I haven't, I think most people don't think that I'm like a one trick pony, but I grew up with bird dogs. My dad grew up like waterfowl hunting. That was like a lot of what I did growing up, and a little bit of big game hunting, but mostly it was bird hunting. And I don't do nearly as much as I used to, but I still love hunting over bird dogs. So much fun.
Within the scope of hunting, where do you feel like your story begins?
Oh, probably hunting. So that's a good question. In my life, are you talking like when in my life does my story begin?
Yeah.
Oh, birth. Yeah, for sure.
At birth.
Yeah.
And then what happened next? Like they weighed you in.
I actually came out of the womb, did a somersault, grabbed a gun, and just started firing. No, I was surrounded by like hunting. Hunting was and fishing was just a part of my life from as far back as I have memories. It was just for as a really young kid. My older brother and I used to go down there was a river bottom where we lived, and it was BB guns. And it was back, I'm 38, but it feels like a bygone era where my parents would literally just be like, okay, we'll see you at the end of the day. And we would take BB guns and literally just go shoot stuff, whatever, trees, rocks, lizards, whatever was around, all day. And we loved it. I loved it. It was completely unconstrained. But that's not I'd say for most people, that's like kind of most parents do, that's kind of a scary thought. But for me, that was before I was legally able to hunt. That's what I did. And then as soon as I was able to even walk any like measurable distance, it was like following my dad around before I could hunt. And then it was just like, I would say I cut my teeth again before I was legally able to hunt, freezing my butt off in hunting waterfowl with hip boots, rubber hip boots, and many times like crossing canals or ditches, like getting water in over the top. And my dad I would be like, can we go back to the truck? And he was like, no, we haven't even gotten started yet hunting, so we're gonna hunt first. So that was definitely like my story as a kid around hunting.
Do you feel like you've got started now, or are you still just getting going?
Oh man, if I ever feel like I have it figured out, I think I'll hang it up.
Really?
So, yeah.
I've talked about this with a couple people, but for me, I don't know that there's anything less satisfying than actually achieving a goal. I hate it. Mm-hmm. It is such an empty feeling. And if I can't replace that with a new goal really quickly, I feel very lost.
Yes, I agree, which is why I hardly ever hunt the same place year after year, because it feels like not challenging enough. Like I like to set a goal of whether that's trying to kill something in a new spot that I don't know, or that could be an antler size goal sometimes. It could be, whatever that goal. I agree with you 100%. I'm goal oriented and goal driven when it comes to hunting and everything else. And I think it's like, I would be incredibly bored if I went to the same exact spot and hunted every year. Even if I killed, let's say for elk, let's say if I just killed an elk every year in the same exact spot, I would be really bored. Because to me, it's like, I know what these animals do. It's not that challenging. Like I know they're going to be in these, like, here's the spots they like to be, and it becomes more predictable. And for me, again, this is just completely personal, but I don't find that challenging enough to keep me going. So I think goals in hunting are a good thing.
Yeah.
Whatever they are.
Sure. But make them big goals. I like attainable goals, but I like setting my sights high.
What are your goals? When you set a goal for yourself, what is James Nash? What are his goals?
They're pretty lofty. They're dreamlike. They're things that maybe aren't even possible or don't have names yet. Like my goal as a little kid was to get into the position that I'm in now, which is where, I'm experiencing the incredible fortune of getting to hunt and fish and travel and develop gear and make a living off of that. That wasn't a thing when I was a little kid and wanted to do that. It simply didn't exist. So those are the types of goals that I set for myself. But like what you're talking about with elk, that happened to me with turkeys. And a few years ago, I shot a bird. I went out and picked him up. And as I did, I saw that within 5 feet of that bird were the shotgun shell wads from the turkey that I'd killed the year before and the year before that. And I know that turkey hunting is hard in a lot of places for a lot of people. It's not here. It's just simply not. And these turkeys did enough of the same thing that I'd killed 3 birds in 3 consecutive years within a few minutes of, first light on opening day. Like I could have put a hula hoop on the ground where that turkey was going to die and it would have happened. And yeah, I kind of quit turkey hunting after that, and at least I had to go to different states and different areas, and I couldn't just continue doing that, even though that was a brand of success. For me, it wasn't satisfying anymore.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I don't honestly, I'll be honest with you, James, like people that don't live their life with goals, like it's like, I'm going to do X or Y, and it's personal or professional or hunting. I have a hard time understanding how everybody doesn't live that way. Cause I'm like, how do you have any direction? How do you know what you want to do? And for some people, I realize it's just everybody's different, right? But I am so hardwired that way with everything I do. I think it probably drives a lot of people around me nuts, but it's the only way I know how to be. And It also has, like you in many ways, like it's opened doors for me that I just didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
And created a life for myself that I would not have planned. I did not plan, actually, even like 10 years ago. I wouldn't have guessed I'd be where I'm at right now. Not even close.
How cool. How cool is that?
I know. We're special, James. You're special.
Yeah.
I get to meet people like James Nash.
Where did you go this year? Where did your life take you around around the world this year?
Oh man, I started. Well, I guess we want to talk about turkey hunting because I know how you feel about that. But I did do some turkey hunting, which I actually used to hate, but now enjoy.
Yeah.
Because I I agree. Turkey hunting in the West can feel very easy sometimes, but I had a few days where it felt impossible, which was a curveball. It was a big curveball to me because I was a very confident turkey hunter, and turkeys reminded me that even though they have a brain, the size of a pea, they can be crafty. So that was fun. I went to Hawaii and I went bow hunting in Hawaii, which was really fun, interesting.
What island were you on?
It was on Maui.
On Maui. So I'm going to interrupt you real quick. I just got back from Maui, and we were talking initially about you growing up with hunting and fishing.
Yeah.
And I find that there's really very little difference between hunting and fishing, but we treat them as 2 completely separate categories all the time. Sure. I was spearfishing while I was there until a guy got killed by a tiger shark like half a mile away. And yeah, sorry to the Hawaiians who like to keep the stuff under wraps, but they really don't broadcast when people get killed by sharks. And it happens with a greater frequency than anyone would probably imagine. And they don't talk about it because it's bad for tourism and bad for business. For me, I didn't want to be in the water anymore. And I text a buddy there, and he's like, well, just don't dress up like a turtle and you'll be all right. And here I am wearing, green Cryptek, and like I look exactly like a turtle. It's like I would mistake myself for a turtle. Like, so it was just some poor life choosing. But especially spearfishing, I feel like it has all the qualities of hunting. You're just hunting for fish.
It's so much fun.
Yeah.
So much fun.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I did a little of it there, but I suck at it, man. I suck at it. But I'm trying.
Did you have a good time hunting axis on Maui?
I did, yeah. I have my friend Sean lives there, and the only reason I think it was as fun as it was is because he has access to private ranch lands there, and there was no shortage of deer. I mean, the biggest problem hunting axis with the deer with the bow there is just like there's so many of them. Anytime you try and move, there's like one behind you or to the side of you that you didn't see. But yeah, it was really fun. I'm actually going back this spring. It was mostly a family trip. When I went to Hawaii, it was and my wife let me it was billed as a family trip. And then a few months before, I said, what do you think about if I brought my bow? And just kind of like went out for a day or two, and I think there was some eye rolling and kind of like that's fine. And so I went out for like a couple afternoons. So I didn't hunt a whole lot, but I had a lot of fun there. And I'm going to go back this time and spend some more time hunting. And I did do a little bit of spearfishing, which I agree is, it is not easy. I mean, it makes it, people that are really good at it, make it look like you just like dive down in the ocean and fish are just like swimming around oblivious to your presence, don't really care about you. And you just like harpoon them and that's it. But that is, as you well know, it's much more complicated than that. You have to be able to hold your breath for a long time, relax under the water. Like it's a whole thing.
Those guys are calling fish in. They're throwing stuff out there for those fish to come chase. They've got all these little tricks. And if you just go out and snorkel around one of the reefs or something, you'll be covered in fish. As soon as you get in with a spear gun, those fish are like, no, I'm out. And it is amazing, but they've been hunted for 1,200 years in that area. They get it. And I think that, they can tell by your body language and, maybe some stuff that I don't understand that you're out there hunting.
Yeah.
Their survival depends on being able to tell whether they're in a safe spot or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was fun, but Hawaii was the first place I went. And then I went to Alaska for a little bit this year, and I went, let's see, I hunted two species I've hunted before, caribou and blacktail. And I don't know how much detail you want me to go into this. So I can give you like skim over it and we can.
No.
Okay.
Go deep. Yeah.
Go deep. Okay.
Yeah. Ass bleeding detail.
Okay. So I went, I spent 5 weeks in Alaska, and I mostly went by myself, and I met, a few people here and there on my trip, but I wanted to kill the ungulate species you could without a guide in Alaska with my bow in one trip. So that's blacktail, caribou, and moose. I'm gonna like bears, I should say like non-predator species, because you could also kill a bear, black bear. But as a non-resident, you can't hunt goats, sheep, or brown bears without a guide. Those species, I would love to kill all of them, but they're also quite pricey. Yeah. So in Alaska, just going to Alaska is expensive, in general. But add on top of like the guide fees you have to pay, and it can be. Anyways, I wanted to do those. Those are the species I want to kill. I went to Kodiak first. Kodiak, I actually just love Southeast Alaska. I'm not somebody who likes like the Pacific Northwest weather or brush. It's not me. It's not my choice. Like I like big open country. I like the desert much more my speed. But Southeast Alaska has just some of the most gorgeous, lush country I've ever experienced. And it just feels like another planet. Alaska feels like another planet in general, but Southeast Alaska, and it's not just Kodiak. I mean, I feel like Kodiak gets a lot of recognition, but it's just that whole part of the world. It's really cool. And blacktails, they're like to me, I mean, they are a mule deer species, but it is very much just like hunting early season mule deer, which is one of my favorite things to do in the world. So I started out on Kodiak and hunted blacktail there for, honestly, I didn't even hunt that long. I had a pretty tight windows between trips. So I had to, I had like 3-4 days to hunt, then I had to move on. And I wanted to kill a couple nice blacktails. And I did that in the first 2 days, like was able to kill one, like within a few hours of my plane landing. Blacktail is also the only one of the few species in Alaska you can hunt the same day you land in your bush plane.
Oh, you can? I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's fun.
Yep, it is. And if it wasn't, I wouldn't be talking about it on the podcast, James.
Yeah, for sure. But I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can hunt blacktail the same day you fly. In Alaska, if anybody isn't aware, like Alaska has regulations around flying and hunting in the same day, which makes total sense to me because you don't want to, if you fly around an airplane, spot an animal, just like land, half a mile away and then, run over and shoot it and then be gone. It's a little unsportsmanlike. Blacktail, at least on Kodiak, like you see some flying on the way in, but you're not really like spotting them from the plane and then getting out and go shooting them because I was landing on water.
Right.
And you land on water, you have to like set up camp and then go out and hunt. And that was fun. Yeah.
That's another ism about Kodiak is we think of Alaska as like, this bush plane country where you're landing on gravel bars and tundra and stuff like that. On Kodiak, you can only land on, you can't land on vegetation, right? So it's only rock beach, improved strip or water.
Yep, absolutely. And those pilots there, the guy that I fly with in Alaska, Willie, is just a good human being.
I like Willie a lot.
You've met, that's right. You flew with Willie, huh? Yeah. I don't know about you, man, but part of the thing I love about just traveling and hunting is, well, first of all, I love new things, new challenges, setting goals, but the people you meet people like Willie, who I never would have met had I not been to Kodiak. And he's just, I don't know, he's just a good human being, and a character. Yeah. Interesting life story.
Totally.
So yeah, anyways, I was able to like shot a buck first day, a really nice one, and packed it back to camp, went out the next day and shot another one. And the second one didn't go quite as like the killing part didn't go quite as smoothly as the first one. It took me a couple arrows, but I was self-filming, and I had my friend of mine who runs a camera too, but I was trying to self-film most of this, since self-filming archery hunting is just, for me anyway, is a challenge, but it also is like, can be really rewarding because it's just that much harder to get the footage you want. And the deer like saw the camera, the second one did, and he didn't like that. It just looks like a giant black eyeball, like, lifted off the ground. It does not, doesn't look normal. But yeah, anyways, kill another deer and then left Kodiak, and then my family flew up. I have 2 young girls, and that was probably one of the highlights of the trip, just being able to show Alaska to my girls and spend it with my wife as well. But they just had a blast. My oldest daughter, who's 6, caught her first salmon.
Cool.
And it was so cool, man. I mean, like the bed and breakfast we stayed at, we did the whole like full on tourist thing, and we were in Seward, Alaska, which is a beautiful tourist town. And right outside this bed and breakfast we were staying at, I heard this like splashing in the water, went out there, and it was salmon that were spawning in the creek. Went and got my kids, brought them out. And I was like, this is what salmon do. Where else are you going to see that? Like, it doesn't happen in a lot of places. You can see it in your neck of the world, right? In the Imnaha or some of the small tributaries. If you're lucky on a good year, maybe you get lucky, or, in Idaho. I wouldn't say in the last few years you wouldn't see it, but seeing salmon like in the wild is like, unfortunately, just like a rare thing anymore, right? you don't see that very often. So being able to see a stream chock full of salmon, it's a life experience that very few people get to experience. So anyways, it was really cool to get to like see that, show my kids that, and just be like, these are fish. They used to live in the ocean. Now they're here, and they'll go, like they're going to die, and they're, young, will go out to the ocean and live and come back here. And it was just like my kids were just like, what? They do this? I'm like, yeah, it's crazy. Totally crazy.
It's so amazing. And we're still figuring out more and more about how they do it. And we still don't know where they go. Like Pacific steelhead are a complete mystery. There's been steelhead from this basin, from the Snake River Basin, Grand Ronde Basin, that have been caught in Japan, in Chile. Like it's a mystery where they go. And then somehow they make it back here. And the current science is that they're doing it based off of the magnetism in the world. And they're basically operating the same way that carrier pigeons do. And there's been some interesting studies done in Washington where they've altered that magnetism for fish in a pool, and they're able to change the direction that those fish are swimming. So that's how they're homing back to, that one piece of gravel that they were born in.
That's wild.
It is. They're not using satellites. They don't need satellites.
No Garmin GPS collar for fish, is there?
Yeah, right? We think we're so smart.
I love the fact that there are things that we don't know.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, I love the fact that we don't know. We just we're guessing, but even with all the smart people and the smart technology, we're just like, at the end of the day, we just think it's magnets.
Yeah.
Just magnets, man. That's how they're finding it.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool. Anyways, I think salmonids and anadromous fish are like very fascinating species to me. So that was cool to get to show my kids that, and then and hang out with them. And it was, I even though I'm gone a lot from my family, especially in the fall, I am a family man at heart. And so seeing my kids is just like a good mental recharge for spending another kind of by myself. So from there, I dropped them off at the airport and then drove to Tok, Alaska, and fled 40-mile mountains.
Who'd you fly with?
I flew 40-mile air.
40-mile air. Oh, yeah. Okay, cool.
Yep, with Leif.
Yep.
Actually, interesting, my pilot, Jay, is from Idaho.
Yep.
And relocated up there. So Idaho, small town. So when you meet somebody else from Idaho, you're like, oh, okay, even though it's a gigantic state. And then that was actually, so funny how I got in with 40-mile air is like notoriously difficult to fly with, not because they don't want to fly you in. It's just because that they take return clients every year first before they take on new clients, and they have enough return business that they just really don't take on a lot of new clients. And so I was actually a part of my friend Nick Mucci's moose hunt, and he was kind enough to let me go on his moose hunt. Well, Nick is in the Air Force, and you may or may not remember, but there was a serious refugee situation going on in late August, early September, and so Nick couldn't go moose hunting. He had to work. He got he had to deal with some stuff. So Nick. I went and was supposed to go with Nick on his moose hunt and just hunt caribou. I ended up just going caribou hunting at his moose spot without him, which was a bummer because I was looking forward to hunting with Nick. But that was interesting because it wasn't like, by that time in September, those caribou were migrating out of a lot of that moose country. And, if I had been on a moose hunt, that 40-mile air would have put me probably in a different spot than they put me for Nick's moose camp. So we get there, fly in, and get dropped off, and there are caribou everywhere. And I'm like, oh, this is like, I was worried we weren't going to see many caribou. And it was like, there were caribou everywhere. It's like, oh, this is going to be great. Can't hunt today, pick it up tomorrow. Next day, we had seen basically these caribou were like migrating on these ridges, more or less following these ridges. And so I was going to try and ambush some caribou. And we got on this ridge, and I didn't see a caribou for the first half of the day. Whatever we saw the day before was gone. And right about like midday, 3 caribou come up this ridge, and I'm like, oh, this is exactly how I thought this would go down. Like we would be here, they would be coming up the ridge, and I'm just gonna like shadow and parry these caribou and get in position to shoot one as they kind of get closer. And I was being pretty picky about the caribou I wanted to shoot, and there was one really nice bull that I tried to shoot, and it just didn't work out. He ended up laying down, which caribou pretty much seem like never do, and he laid down for like 3 hours, which they really never do. But he did it. I saw it, so I can tell you the caribou do sleep sometimes during the migration. And that didn't work out. Next day, and I had some opportunity on smaller bulls, and I was like, no, I've shot small caribou before. I've shot one of the caribou. I'm like, I shot a smaller bull. Like, I want to shoot a big bull. And next day comes around, there's fewer caribou even yet, right? So today I don't even see one until 1 o'clock. I don't see a single caribou, and I'm just up there glassing my brains out. I see lots of grizz, see some nice bull moose, but no caribou. And then lo and behold, here comes just a real nice bull by himself. And I got to like 24 yards on him. Classic, like wins me. Like everything was perfect. I was about ready to draw my bow back. He's walking behind a tree. I'm like, oh, this is done. And he just decides to stop and eat. And then the wind and he's gone. That was the only caribou I saw that day. Next day, I have like 2 more days to hunt. And I'm like, man, maybe I should just take whatever comes my way. Cause like I'm seeing fewer caribou every day. And next day, same situation, like no caribou around. This time it's like 2 o'clock, and I see a pretty good sized herd of caribou coming down through the timber, cross this river, and then start to come up the other side towards me. And they're kind of coming to my right. And so I just like take off. Remember, I'm self-filming all this, right? So like get some footage and, dick around a little bit and then just take off to try and like get these caribou off. And it ended up being one of those situations where I'm like I've got like 2 cameras. Like anybody who's ever self-filmed, if you haven't done it, it's hard to describe how annoying it can be at times especially when you have a bow in your hand. It's just like, and there are so many times where I just want to tomahawk that camera that's sitting on my tripod and just be like, no, I'm done with this thing, But I drew back on this. There was a nice like bachelor group of bulls, and I was like sneaking in on them. They're going this way, and I'm paralleling them, and drew back on a very large bull. And as he stops at 50 yards, another caribou pulls right behind him. So there's 2 caribou lined up, and I don't shoot because if that arrow would likely sail through and hit the other one. And luckily there was a couple other bulls to the right about 30 yards. And so I just like swung my bow over and estimated the yardage and shot one of those, and it worked out.
Awesome.
But yeah, that was fun. Yeah.
That sounds fun. Like a cool, how are the bugs?
The bugs weren't bad until like the day I shot so as soon as I shot that bull and started butchering it, like the black flies came out, just vicious, man. Just vicious.
What day of September was this? Do you remember
I have to look. It's middle of September, mid-September.
Okay. So it wasn't quite a full moon yet?
No, it wasn't actually. Yeah. I don't remember, but I'm like, how did you?
Yeah.
Observation, James. You weren't there, but
there was one day when we were moose hunting, and I was there a little bit later in September, but there was a day that the wind quit magically, which I don't think happens very often on the Alaska Peninsula. And we got eaten. Like it was bad. It was really bad with the bugs. I mean, they crushed us. And then the wind picked back up and it was fine. But besides that one day, we were good. I do not like buggy places. That just destroys me.
No, I hate bugs. I'm not like mosquitoes swarming around my face. There's not something I like to deal with.
Some people can handle it, and it's amazing to me. They're just like, they don't even swat them away. They just live like that.
There are some people who don't seem to mind, but I can tell you that. So there were grizzlies like all around me. Like I was seeing grizz within a few hundred yards of camp, and I thought it was only a matter of time, like maybe an hour before there would be a grizz like come sauntering over to see what was going on, smell that carcass. I cared more about the flies in that moment than I did about the grizzly bears. And
For sure.
they were just so obnoxious, like and it seems like, oh, dude, this is the thing. I don't know if you had this, but the black flies would land on my face, but then crawl up underneath the brim of my hat and just start biting me. And I couldn't feel it. But then I would have these welts underneath my, where your hat sits on your forehead. I mean, really bad welts. And God, it was painful because they were itchy. It's an annoying thing. I think that's just part of the experience. You can't go to Alaska and not have some bug experience to get the full value.
Yeah, that's true. Max Benz was videoing my moose hunt, and he got the worst of it, man. It looked like somebody got that guy with a shotgun. Like he'd been quail hunting with Dick Cheney or something. It was a bad deal.
Oh, poor Max.
Poor Max.
Yeah. That was, so the other thing, funny thing about that too, is like, I shot that, I don't know about you when you archery hunt, but when I archery hunt, I kind of, in some ways I black out my memory. Like I just have no memory. So I remember hearing the arrow hit and thinking good shot, but then I watched all the caribou run away. And that tundra we're at, I mean, it is the most difficult, awful terrain or ground to try and blood tracking, because it's just red, green. It's all just like a multicolor, and it's brushy, and so lots of colors. It's really hard to find blood. And I had this, like, it was funny because I had a camera on which captured the shot, and I was certain, this is how funny memory works, right? There was one tree, and I was certain that the caribou was standing next to that tree when I shot. And so I went to look for my arrow right by that tree. And then I went back and looked finally at the footage, and that caribou was 20 yards to the right of the tree, like not even close. Yeah. But in my mind, he was right there.
Yeah.
And it's just so funny. I'm like, how many times have I been like certain of something that I thought was the truth? We'll just leave it, in a hunting scenario right now. And I was just completely wrong, not even close.
Yeah. It's a really interesting thing. I am often in the situation where I'm going up to one of my clients and saying, where did you hit him? Where was he standing? Mm-hmm. And whether that guy was in a tree stand by himself or whether we were calling and I was, 100 yards back in the trees, I don't know. And usually they don't know either. In fact, I would go so far as to say that they never give you the ground truth of anything. And it's not because they're lying. It's just because we're bad first person witnesses. It's just, we suck at it.
Like I always think of the place that my head went immediately was, I don't know if you're aware of like the data behind like witnesses and trials.
Yeah.
And how like completely unreliable people are, even if they're confident. Like there is like there are gobs and gobs of evidence of people saying like this is what happened, and then evidence comes out to be that it's clear like that is not what happened, and it's not because that person is lying. They just like memory is not an accurate. Like we are not good at remembering things is what it comes down to. Yeah. Even when we are convinced that we are remembering things correctly, we're not.
I wonder what the evolutionary benefit to that is. Like how did we get like this, and then what's the advantage to that? I don't know. I've heard it proposed that we forget about critical details in hunting because a lot of our hunting history has been very violent and dangerous, and that was part of a mechanism to protect us because caveman Bob got squished by that mammoth, and that was really traumatic. And if we remembered all the details of that well, maybe we wouldn't go back out mammoth hunting again next month.
I buy that. It's like a coping mechanism and a self-preservation mechanism. I can believe that.
Whatever it is, it works for us, but it's awkward. It's awkward in real life when you're going to go out there and try and find blood, for sure.
Yeah. And now, anytime there's a camera around, you can, indisputably like go back and see what actually happened. I find it interesting though, too, when let's say we're out on a hunt filming with other people. I often will be behind the camera as much as I'm in front of it. I don't know that people know that, but I film a lot, and I can't tell you how many times where, you're filming somebody and they're like, oh man, that felt like really good. And I'm like, that was not good. Like, you did not hit that where you thought you did.
Yeah.
Like, and they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, at best you hit them in the paunch.
Yeah.
Or just like, like, I think we think, even, and again, it's not that I don't think people are making any of it up. I think that they genuinely, and I'm guilty of it too. Like, that was, that arrow went exactly where I wanted it to. And then you actually get your arrow and you're like, oh, maybe that, you smell, intestines on it. And you're like, oh, maybe that was a little bit further back. I thought that was a hard shot. So
a big one that I'm working on trying to explain for next year is trying to help people understand what broadside looks like. Because just about everybody thinks that they take a broadside shot, and then you show them the carcass and it's definitely not perfectly broadside. And usually it's way off. So that, the entry might be laterally 2 feet away from the exit. So it's a pretty steep angle. And I've had a lot of people argue with me that no, it was broadside. It's just that the arrow turned, which can happen. But then maybe there's some game camera footage that goes along with it. And, I think people really, really do struggle with that. And especially a shot that's slightly quartering away where the animal's looking back at them. Mm-hmm. They always think that that's broadside and they aim at the wrong place.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that is very true. And I think for me in the moment, especially with an arrow, I am always in my head. I think I have this subconscious thought of like, is it broadside enough for me to aim? You know what I mean? Because it is really hard to tell sometimes in the heat of the moment, like, is it really broadside or just broadside enough? But being aware of that I think that's something that probably can only come through with practice and just seeing a lot of animals get hit with arrows and in a situation where you as the shooter or even observing the shooter would be like, that animal looked broadside, but in reality it was quartering to you like severely, but its neck was turned in such a way where it looked like it was broadside.
Yeah. And our focus becomes very, very narrow. Hopefully we're looking at the point that we intend to impact, whether it's with an arrow or a bullet or blowgun dart or whatever it is we're hunting with. But I think within that focus, we can lose track of where that animal is standing and how he's angled to us. And I think that's probably what happened with your caribou. Is as soon as it cleared the tree, you looked at where you were going to shoot. And you were also distracted thinking about your camera. And then as this, bull walks along and you eventually take the shot, you haven't been cataloging where that animal was moving. It's just fascinating stuff, but we're kind of in the weeds here. So after caribou, was it moose next?
Yeah, moose is next. So didn't get eaten by a grizz there, which is fun. When I went out, I think we were also on the Alaska peninsula, and the moose hunt, man, I'll be honest with you. I did not love my moose hunt. It was a true swamp hunt. Like we got dropped off in a swamp, and I lived on a tiny little island surrounded by water. And it was like, I was surprised we even found a spot to camp that was dry. And it was like, you could tell there were moose that were living in the zone we were in, but it wasn't, it's a longer story, but I didn't feel like we got put in a great spot. And a lot of what you're paying for with an air transporter is their ability to put you in a spot that's going to give you an opportunity for success. We saw moose the first day. Like I actually called in a non-legal bull because there was a 50-inch four-brow tine restriction where you're at. He was at 44 yards, something like that. First raking session I did, like literally first day, got out of the tent, walked 30 yards, raked some brush, waited 15 minutes. There's a bull moose standing there. I was like, oh man, this is going to be phenomenal hunting. Well, that was the only bull I ended up seeing for a week. And I saw a cow right after that. And those were the only two moose I saw the entire time. And the rest of the time, I couldn't walk. I am by nature someone who, if I don't find what I'm looking for, I keep walking. And anybody who's hunting with me, either they like hunting with me or they really don't like hunting with me, because I'll just keep walking because I just like walking. And for that moose hunt, it was a sedentary affair, which I don't mind being sedentary and being patient if if you feel like there's a chance for success, but it just didn't feel like there was anything around after we had been living in this little spit of trees for a few days. I think it probably had to do with the fact that our scent was getting blown up and down this in this tree line we were living in. It was tough, just like mentally tough, because it didn't feel like there was much I could do. I took a tree saddle and got up high in a tree so I could see, because you can't really see when you're living in a swamp. Still didn't see anything. Tried calling, tried not calling, tried everything. It was definitely an experience. I'll tell you, my philosophy on hunts like that is like, I'm not mad or bitter or anything. It was an experience and I wouldn't change it for anything, because it also made me like realize what I didn't want in terms of a moose hunt. Because I am going to go back and moose hunt at some point. And now I know a lot more about the kind of hunt that I want, I don't want. And I don't want to do that kind of hunt again, where I wake up and have to put my waders on the minute I get out of the tent, and then I can't walk more than 200 yards from our tent because the water's over my head. So anyways, that was kind of the cap to our trip. Yeah. Anyways, fun hunt, but not exactly what I was hoping it would be. But it was also like, our pilot knew I was hunting with a bow, and I think most Alaska pilots, when they don't know you and you tell them you're hunting with a bow, they sort of assume that you have no idea what you're doing. I've learned this, where there's an assumption that like, okay, this guy thinks he's not his chances of success are low. Most bow hunters don't succeed, and this guy doesn't know what he's doing. And so I think he probably put me in a spot where he thought I would have a chance for success, but it also had just a low population of moose.
Why do you hunt with a bow? Like all those hunts, you could have brought a rifle. Why bring a bow?
Yep. I hunt with a rifle a ton too, so I'm not opposed to rifle hunting. I've already killed a caribou and a blacktail with a rifle. And back to our earlier conversation about goals, I wanted to see if I could do it with a bow, because it's harder. There's just no question about it. Like, killing anything with a bow is harder, and it's more difficult, more challenging. And that is part of what I love about hunting, is just kind of presenting new challenges to myself.
Let me throw something out at you here. What makes killing an animal harder with a bow is that you have to be closer to it in order to succeed. Would you agree with that?
I feel like this is a leading question, James, but I will agree with the premise of your first point.
Okay. And there's some other things, like there's a movement when you draw the bow that can alert the animal. There's some other factors there. But what if you just said, okay, 50 yards is my limit, but I'm going to bring a rifle? How would that change the experience for you?
That wouldn't change it. It wouldn't be the same.
Wouldn't be the same. Yeah.
It wouldn't be the same. And there's probably something more that I just don't understand yet about why I like it. But yeah, there's something about, I have had some tremendously, and I still continue and will continue to have hunts with a rifle that I thoroughly enjoy. But there is something about shooting something with an arrow, like a solid projectile that's only moving, at most 300 feet per second, coming out off of a string, that is probably prehistoric in my brain. And there's something very, very satisfying about it. Yeah.
I agree with you 100% on this, by the way. And you said something here that I'm going to get to in just a second that I think is really important when you're considering, archery hunting versus rifle hunting. And I do think that shooting a bow is in our DNA. And maybe not DNA specifically for the science nerds that are going to get mad at me, but there's something about the bow that if our ancestors weren't good at using a bow, we wouldn't exist, period. None of us. It's a really interesting tool that's connected with our success as a species. But what you talked about was that it's not so much about the bow as it is about the arrow. And I think that if we talked about it like it was arrow hunting rather than bow hunting, right?
Yeah.
That changes stuff a little bit in a really important way.
Yeah, because I have killed, I don't know, maybe half a dozen animals or more, well within bow range. Like the first, and it's different. Like the first time I went to Alaska, I went hunting with my dad and my brother and my friend. My dad shot a really nice caribou bull at 45 yards. Most people consider that to be, and I could have gotten a lot closer. This caribou was laying down the vegetation, like it was windy, so it was noise covered. Like I could have probably gotten 10 yards on this bull had I wanted to, but he shot it within bow range. It didn't make it any more enjoyable. It was still it was an incredible moment for me to be with my dad watching caribou. There was nothing more special about it because we got that close. But had he had a bow and arrow and shot it, it would have been very different experience. And perhaps it is because of the arrow, not the bow. I am not somebody who hunts. I feel like in our culture today, James, there are some people who hunt with the bow as like an ego thing or an identity thing. I hunt with a bow a lot, but it's not a part of my identity. I do it because I really enjoy it, not because I want other people to view me in a certain way. If that makes sense. But I do think there is something about this arrow concept that is very interesting.
Yeah. I hear a lot of people say stuff like, well, I just love elk, or I love mule deer, whatever it is, whatever your species is. Mm-hmm. I think that if I try to be a little bit more honest with myself, and the same could apply for archery, it's not that I love elk, it's that I love the way elk make me feel when I'm close to them. Mm-hmm. And that's a different thing. And I care about elk, and I really do. And I work really hard to make sure that the elk around me have the best life that they can live. But mostly I love the way they make me feel.
That's an interesting observation. Yeah. Huh. You made me think a little bit about that. 'Cause I think, for the last probably 8 or 9 years, I've been very into mule deer. And I love hunting elk too. It's not because mule deer there's anything necessarily special about them, but I love the places they live and how hard they can be to kill like big mule deer. And it's very challenging. And I think I've never thought about it in terms of how they make me feel, but for me, it's been largely about the places that they take me to go looking for them and how difficult they are. It is, I hadn't thought about that. It's an interesting observation.
And where they are is important too. And this is something that's been written about the rainbow trout, is that they live in beautiful places. And I think that that's an important part about trout fishing, is that if you're fishing for rainbow trout, chances are you're in a place that's pretty nice to look at. Okay, so you spend all this time, your whole life, hunting, fishing, being outside. You're spending a lot of days challenging yourself in the field. And through that's informed the way you go about making gear for Argali and designing gear. You make my favorite knife. You make some innovative and effective game bags that you can use over and over again. You made a belt and a belt buckle that's a knife sharpener that I thought was a stupid idea that I end up using all the time now. What else you got going on?
Oh yeah, I'll tell you what. The highest compliment I can get is from James Nash telling me that he loves my knives. I mean that. I've told you this, James, not on this podcast, but I think one of the hardest things about making gear is getting honest feedback from the people around you about, I think the only way you make quality product, because you're not going to nail everything out of the gate, but the only way you can make quality products is if you have people who are brutally honest with you. And I mean brutally honest. And if you surround yourself with people that are afraid to tell you what they don't like, it's just really hard to make things better or make a quality product. So and I can always count on you to give it to me straight, which I sincerely appreciate. Our Kodiak belt, yeah, it seems like a kitschy product, but in fact, I think I do think it works pretty well.
I wear it all the
So
time.
I've got a lot of stuff in the works. Can't really talk about it yet, but I've got a lot of new products coming, and I think my gear. There's a lot of gear in this world. We're not solving any world problems by making hunting gear, and I'm not trying to. I love making gear that I feel like solves problems for me and my friends. And if that happens to help other people have a more enjoyable field experience or hunting experience, that's just icing on the cake. And I am like very anal about the details of everything we do. I like to tell everybody around Argali that like there is no such thing as a detail too small, and I mean nothing. There is no piece of any product we make that is a throwaway piece or that we sacrifice on to make something cheaper, like nothing. And that, some people will say, well, your products are, expensive. They're too expensive. Like, I don't want to pay that kind of money. And I'm like, that's fair. They are expensive. They can be viewed as expensive, but there's a reason for it. And, we're not trying to make, sort of the Walmart version of anything. No offense to Walmart. But we are trying to make products that people who really use them will be able to use them and not have them fail, or will try and solve some problems they're encountering. So
nothing is more expensive than counting on a cheap piece of gear that failed.
That's the truth. Yes. And the only way, I've learned those lessons the hard way, right? I can remember not having, hardly having any money, but still wanting to go hunting as much as possible. But it's like you buy what you can. And our game bags came from me. I'm not going to name the brand, but there was a brand of game bag that I used a bunch. And I had one fail on me, and flies just like got it and laid a bunch of maggots on some meat. And I just remember saying to myself, I'm like, this is a shit product. And I can make something that's better than this. And that was like the start of everything right there. And it took me a long time to figure it out, because I'm not an engineer. I don't come from I don't have a gear company background. I don't have any of that background, like none of it. And we were able to figure out how to do it. And I don't think we've got everything necessarily like figured out 100%, but we're trying to continually evolve our product line and make everything better. And I think we make a pretty good game bag. So anyways, that's just kind of our like design philosophy and my philosophy when it comes to gear. I do have 2 new product categories coming out this year, and we'll have to hop on another podcast to talk about those, because I feel like it would be a little premature, James, for me to talk about them just yet. Okay. But I think they're going to be really cool. And I think you'll like them, hopefully. And if you don't, I know you'll tell me.
We'll tease it out a little bit when we get closer. And then the other thing is there's an entertainment and educational aspect to what you're doing as well. Do you want to talk about your videos at all, or where people can find them?
Yeah. We started out as a content company, and we still make a lot of content. I'd say I think of our content in terms of telling stories that I find interesting. So a lot of that's been focused on the value of wild country for hunting. That's, big wild country is still the thing that I love. I love disappearing into wild country and going hunting. It's my favorite thing. That is a scarce resource, and it's becoming harder and harder to get lost. And I personally view that as sort of a tragic thing. I think we should be able to get lost. And in particular, going into big wild country and going hunting is, those big adventure hunts. That's what I love about hunting. I love, reading some like Fred Bear's stories about going to Alaska for a month at a time. I'm drawn to that kind of hunting. Not everybody is, but I am. And so a lot of our content has been, early content was focused on telling stories about cool places and people that had connection to those places, because I'm also interested in humans and people and their connection to hunting. So anyways, we still do some of that. I'd say it is meant to be both like inspirational and motivational, and just tell our story about kind of our value system and what I enjoy about hunting, which is, hunting with close family and friends, and enjoying the outdoors.
And I'm not a great consumer of media. I've really enjoyed a few of your videos. Full disclaimer, like sometimes Brad hunts with llamas, and I can't endorse that in any way. Um, but
I'm waiting to see how long it would take for you to bring up llamas.
but no, you do a really good job, man, and I enjoy it, and I understand more and more how much work goes into what you do, and the product is a reflection of that work, and I appreciate you.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that, man. Yeah, we try really hard. I do hunt with llamas. For the record, though, I've been doing it since before it was cool.
It's never cool. It's not cool right now.
Oh man, I think llamas they're like training wheels for horses.
Well, they can scare the hell out of a horse. That much is certain.
Can I tell you one quick story about that?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, I'll tell you this because this will make you happy, because I know you don't like llamas, but I used to hunt this spot with llamas about a decade ago, and we used to hunt the same general area this outfitter hunted it, and we used to pull a lot of elk out of his area where he would take his clients, and some outfitters are okay with that, and some hate your guts when you do that, because like those are their clients' elk, in some of their minds. And this guy was definitely like the latter. He did not like us hunting in his zone, and he sure as hell hated us.
I do not like outfitters like that. And
oh no,
yeah, that's uncool in my world.
Very uncool. And I know I have friends with a number of outfitters who are very different than that and not like that at all.
Yeah.
But that does happen.
Sure.
And it happened in this situation. And this guy, we used to backpack for a while in this area, but it was a really long way in and out. And after like 2 years of doing that, I told my buddies, I was like, this is insane, you guys. Like, pulling 3 elk out of here is just like, it's tough. And, we should maybe looking to getting llamas. We show up in llamas, and this outfitter was just like, not only did he hate us because we hunted in his, like the area where he took his clients, but now we had llamas, and he was not shy about letting us know what he thought about our llamas one day when we saw him on the trail. And it was a really pleasant encounter. But anyways, I just tell you that to know that, like, I'm well aware of that, and nothing warms my heart more than when I'm walking down the trail with llamas and I see a guy on a horse who's really pissed off about our llamas, because I know he's pissed off about it. But llamas don't mind horses, James.
Well, yeah, I think they're just plotting, maybe. But no, and on that note, I feel like that's worth talking about, because there are a bunch of other guides and outfitters that listen to this. Like those are not your animals. That's not your area. And I get it. Like public permits for guiding are ridiculously expensive. The last one that opened up in this area was $250,000. And I cannot for the life of me pencil out how that works, except that like maybe you just get by enough to like make the payments, and then when you're ready to retire, you sell the business and you sell the permit, and hopefully you can retire off that. But it is ridiculously expensive to get a public land permit to guide on. And there's only one outfitter that's allowed per area in most forest areas. So it's a super tough thing. And because of that, a lot of these guys will feel like they own it. Like they have some ownership of that because they've paid money into it. They've spent time in there, lots of time in there, and they're making their business off of it. But it's still public land. It's everybody's area. The animals are kept in a trust for the public. They don't belong to the outfitter. And it's a really poor way to think about how you're conducting yourself and how you're conducting that business. And there's no place for it. There's no place for it.
Luckily for me though, man, that's the minority of my experience. Like I have certainly, you run into, if you hunt enough, you're going to run into guys who make their living taking clients out. And the majority of them have been wonderful people and very like pleasant. There's a few bad experiences I've had over the years, but luckily it's been, for me anyway, it's been the minority of my experiences.
And I think that's the case with all people. Like most people are pretty good.
Oh yeah.
And then
I know,
a few of them aren't. Like, doesn't really matter what the profession is.
No, not at all.
Well, man, I'm looking forward to seeing you at the shows that we're going to be at together this year. And we'll continue, debating back and forth on whether llamas should be allowed to continue existing or not, and hoist a beer at some point in between.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. Yes, I think one of these years I'm going to take you on a llama hunt and take a photo of you standing next to a llama just so I can.
It's been photoshopped a few times, but it hasn't actually happened in real life. So we'll see about that one.
Okay. All right. Thanks for having me on.
All right, brother. Appreciate you.
October, November, December, they're just the best months out of the year, right? Whether it's for work or hunting or fishing, the holidays, spending time with your family, it's awesome, right? And we've got some nice cold mornings now, and you get to go out and have a warm drink in the duck blind or out on the hillside where you're glassing for mule deer or elk, or sitting in a tree stand waiting for a whitetail to come past. Or you're working on the job site and you get to take a break and have some nice warm coffee waiting for you. It's pretty nice. Having a cold drink at the end of the day, that makes everything a little bit better too. My favorite Stanley item right now is the 14-ounce titanium travel mug. Super lightweight because it's made out of titanium, so I'm willing to take it with me when I'm hunting, throw it in my pack. Fits in every cup holder out there, and it just seems to be the right amount of coffee. I like it. It's a really cool item, and it fits a niche that I didn't have filled in like any of my other drinkware categories, I guess. If you're looking for a Christmas present for somebody or just a gift that you want to help them out with, I recommend this because it's pretty cool and it's something that they don't have already. The way most discount codes work, completely honest, is if you use it, then whoever gave you that code gets a kickback. Now, I'm not a salesman and I want nothing to do with that. So I'm going to pass along to you a discount code that Stanley gave me because they're great supporters of this podcast and they're great supporters of this audience, which I love. So if you use the discount code 6RANCH, the number 6, the word ranch, you'll get 25% off anything you order from Stanley1913.com. I get nothing back from that. I don't want anything. I just want to pass along some savings to you and save you a little bit of money and get you connected with this great company that makes really great products. And as we move through fall and get into winter and the holidays, just hope everybody's doing well and having a good time and that you get to get out there and connect with nature and connect with your friends and family and have a nice warm drink while you're doing it. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share the show with a friend. You can also rate the podcast and leave a review. Your support allows me to keep doing what I love, which is meeting incredible folks and sharing their stories with you. For more content and photos, follow the show on Instagram at 6Ranch Podcast or me at 6Ranch Outfitters. This episode was produced by Emily Brannigan, with original music written and performed by Justin Hay. Art for the 6Ranch Podcast was created by John Chatelain and digitized by Celia Christofferson. Tune in every Monday for a brand new episode of the 6Ranch Podcast. I'll catch you next week.